Batman and Wonder Woman dive headfirst into the world of Irish and Celtic mythology. So we're going to go over a review of this issue and talk about what it really means coming up in the rest of the video. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something you should go back to the comic book shop for or not. So make sure you subscribe to get more of these every single week. The book that I want to talk about right now is The Brave and the Bold, Batman and Wonder Woman. So this is a book by Liam Sharp, who did a lot of artwork for Wonder Woman when Greg Rucka was writing it, and he took his own take on Batman and Wonder Woman and thrust them into the Irish and Celtic mythology. So I'm really excited to see where this one kind of breaks down and what kind of intricacies we can weave in here, because Diana has patrons that are Greek gods, and now she's dealing with the Celts. So I'm wondering where that kind of crossover is. But either way, it's going to be pretty interesting. So let's dive in and see what's going on. Okay, so The Brave and the Bold, Batman and Wonder Woman opens up with a really interesting concept. As Diana derives a lot of her powers from her patrons that are in the Greek gods, now we get to see her interacting with Celtic and Irish mythology. So the first thing that we really open up on is a little bit of history regarding Sir Nuno and the rest of the faerie realm of Tir na Nog. So it's this great ornate kind of village land, and you've got these great fantastical fairy creatures that are kind of in conflict right now, and this is a kind of lost realm, and you get the impression that there's somebody that's plotting in the background, and that's what we see in the kind of caption boxes that surround this really great environment. Of course, we need to bounce over to Diana because she's going to be playing a key point in this entire story. Of course, Diana is with Steve, and they're kind of set up in the Villa Las Estrellas, where, you know, the city of stars in Antarctica, where they've got no Wi-Fi, no internet, no phone calls, those kind of things. And it's really the first time that they've been on their own in quite some time, and they're making the best of it in, well, all the ways that you'd want to make it with Wonder Woman or Steve or whatever, man. They're taking their time, and they're trying to figure out exactly what their relationship is entailing, because they're both not necessarily there, but the key is that they're there in this moment. Of course, this is interrupted by Sir Nuno, who makes his appearance because he needs some help, and the only person he can think of is the Lady Divine, Diana's Wonder Woman. So he comes and makes an interesting proposition to potentially join with them, but let's talk about Bruce a little bit. Bruce has noticed something pretty small. The Irish quarter hasn't really moved much. You know, a 5-block radius has only moved a few paces over the last few hours. So he hops in the Batmobile and he goes down to take a closer look. Overall, air analysis hasn't revealed anything. So it's one of those things where he is trying to figure out exactly what's going on that's causing this kind of disruption inside these movement patterns of these people. When we bounce back over to Sir Nuno, who's talking with Wonder Woman and Diana, of course, Steve has to put down the gun because he's dealing with a god, a member of the divine, who is interested in possibly having a threesome with him, which is relatively interesting, or at least blessing them with a child, I guess, because it's a god of fertility and life. So you never know what might happen in a comic book. It's a really interesting and funny concept that Liam Sharp puts in there, and I really appreciated that. It's just, I thought that was rather humorous. Of course, Diana gets all the information that she needs from this Irish god as he goes over exactly what needs to happen and how she can help in the most specific of ways. And she, of course, accepts, saying that she needs an hour to ready herself. And Steve's like, well, why do you even need an hour? You never put on makeup. And oh, that's why we need an hour. So he gets lucky before they start to leave. We get an interlude where we talk about what looks to be a guardian of a gateway, you know, the ley lines where Tir na Nog lays. So he's just some sort of rambling old man, but the voiceover, the person that's been laying these plans, these plots, definitely thinks that he is very much in the right. So I feel like he's going to play a much bigger part over the course of this 6-issue miniseries. Then we get some fantastical artwork. Liam Sharp, who was writing and illustrating this book, does a great job. This whole single-page splash where we've got Wonder Woman leading Sir Nuno, and this is going through the pathway that leads to Tir na Nog, through these kind of Celtic knots. It's a fantastic scene. I love the visuals. The character design on the god is just great. And the explanation as to the isolation of the fairy realm from the realm of mortals is very, it's very poignant, and ultimately it leads to why we revere some gods in certain pantheons and some that we don't. You know, they've made a voluntary removal of themselves from the realm of mortal men. And then we get a few more visuals when it comes to the land of Tir na Nog, this fairy realm, and the castle looks brilliant, and oh, there's some sort of conflict that's brewing. What's happening? There's a boy in chains. You know, Sir Nuno needs to find out what's happening, and their king is dead. And Captain Firth is going to lynch the boy that's responsible for poisoning the king. Of course, this might not necessarily be the case. So Wonder Woman, exercising caution, says that, Sir Nuno must not despair, but Captain Firth is devout in his belief that he needs to exact revenge, whether he has to go through the gods or not. Of course, this leads us over to Batman, and Batman is interacting with what's happening inside the Irish Quarter, which is causing him to go into some sort of catatonic state like the rest of them. Is his spirit or his soul being pulled into the fairy realm by these kind of demonically looking fairy creatures, or has something else happened? The terror is something that he has kind of succumbed to, and that leaves him standing there like everybody else inside the Irish Quarter, not necessarily knowing what's going on. And that's where we kind of conclude the first issue, and I'm really excited about where this is going. Overall, the artistic stylings of Liam Sharp aren't really anything that you can kind of find fault with, because he did a fantastic job when it was on his run with Greg Rucka for Wonder Woman, and it's interesting to see how he kind of styles Batman in this respect. He never really had these huge interactions when it came to the character while he was doing Wonder Woman, and so far he's got a relatively basic take on the character, but I'm interested to see how they interact. My favorite part is, of course, the Celtic and Irish mythology that goes into it, the design of Sir Nuno, the interaction with Diana, her showing her respect to the deities of another culture, so I really like that. And overall, I think that Liam Sharp has a good grasp on her voice and her relationship, which is a pretty stark contrast to how she's been in a few other books, but I'm really excited to see where this one goes. But I want to know what you guys think too, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.